I never expected my CEO mother would show up as a cleaner. What I discovered changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I was sitting in my living room, my heart racing like I had just climbed a mountain. The smell of burnt toast filled the air, and the ticking clock seemed to mock me. I swiped my phone, another email from work, another crisis to fix. Then, the doorbell rang. Just a typical delivery, I thought. But when I opened the door, my world spun. There she stood. My mother, the powerful CEO I had always admired from afar, clad in a worn-out blue jumpsuit. Her hands were calloused, her eyes shielded by a battered cap. "Mom." It was a choked whisper. The shock sent shivers down my spine. I never expected to see her in this state, not with her perfectly manicured nails and designer suits. From my childhood memories of lavish parties and boardroom triumphs, what was she doing here, dressed like that? I glanced down the street. A couple of neighbors had stopped, their eyes wide with disbelief. My hands trembled as I invited her in, the silence thick with unsaid words. She stepped inside, and the familiar warmth of our home seemed to chill, wrapping around me like a heavy fog. I could see her trying to hide her exhaustion. "You wouldn't believe what I've been going through," she started, her voice strained. I could barely breathe, anticipation knotting my stomach. Mom had been a pillar in my life, a monumental figure running a multi-billion-dollar company, leading with grace and authority. I idolized her, yet here she was, mopping the floor as if it were just another day at the office. My heart raced at the thought of what led her to this. Was it a scandal? Financial ruin? I struggled to find the words, but they danced around my tongue like buzzing bees. "Is everything okay?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me, her gaze piercing. "It's complicated." I could see the lines of worry etched on her face, the weight of something immense pressing down on her shoulders. There were shadows in her eyes, ancient and deep. We stood in the kitchen, the scent of burnt toast now mixing with my frantic thoughts. Each second felt like an eternity. What revelation awaited me? I thought of our family dinners, our laughter echoing through the walls, now replaced with this awkward tension. My heart pounded. "What are you hiding from me?" I finally blurted out, as if to break the spell that clung to the air. I watched her chest rise and fall, her breath hitching. There was something lurking underneath her calm facade, something dangerous. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, my phone buzzed, shattering the moment. A text from my best friend, Sarah, saying, "I found something out about your mom." My heart plunged. What could Sarah know? My mind raced. "Mom, please, what is it?" I begged, desperation creeping into my voice. But the room was enveloped in an impenetrable silence. The weight of the moment felt heavy as lead. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. "I need to show you something. What could possibly be more shocking than this?" As she turned the screen towards me, I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. My heart raced as I glanced down, but just then, our eyes met, and I couldn't prepare myself for what lay ahead. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The screen flickered as my mother held her phone out, the glow-catching features on her face that I had never noticed before, lines etched with sorrow, a faraway look in her eyes that frightened me. The image was striking, taunting, like a monster lurking just beyond the door, waiting to be unleashed. I leaned closer, instinctively pulling my chair forward, the anticipation mingled with dread sending a shiver up my spine. "What is it, Mom?" I whispered, my voice cracking. She bit her lip, a gesture I recognized from my childhood, a sign of uncertainty. Just read it first. Her voice trembled slightly, as if the weight of her words could shatter the moment. I hesitated, glancing between her intense gaze and the screen. My heart pounded, each beat like an echo in the silence that enveloped us. I took a breath, my fingers grazing the screen as I opened the message. The photo loaded slowly, my anxiety amplifying with each passing second. It was a picture of Hermie's mother standing in front of a dilapidated building, surrounded by a group of people, all looking at her with admiration that was almost palpable. My throat tightened as I read the caption. Leading a community outreach for the marginalized, now a cleaner, a friend, a mentor. The words hit me like bricks. I blinked, struggling to process what this meant. Mom, you're helping people. My voice caught in my throat, torn between admiration and a flood of confusion. My idealization of her clashed violently with this new image. Why not tell me? Why hide this? She sighed, the sound heavy with years of repressed emotion. I wanted to shield you from the truth, to protect you from the fallout of my decisions. Her vulnerability was raw and unguarded, a stark contrast to the composed CEO who once commanded boardrooms with ease. I stepped away from the company after the shareholders' meeting. They didn't understand my vision for social impact. They wanted profits over people. I couldn't be part of that anymore. Each word she spoke came out like a slow exhale, releasing the tightly wound tension between us. I flicked my eyes back to the screen, staring at the caption that now felt tainted with layers of complexity. Why didn't you come to me? I felt so abandoned when you left. I thought I was alone. She took a step closer, the air thickening with unexpressed emotions. I didn't want you to feel ashamed of me, of my choices. I thought I was protecting you. But this isn't shameful. I insisted, feeling fire rise within me at her words. It's brave. You made a choice to help others. Hope sparked briefly in the dim room, but then dread returned. But what does this mean for you? For us? A shadow crossed her features. There's so much you don't know, and it's hard to explain. The company is being dismantled piece by piece. My decisions, they left us vulnerable. There are people who want me to fail for what I've done. A revelation hung between us, pulsating with the intensity of an unspoken fear. My heart sank, picturing the implications of her words. Financial crisis wasn't an abstract term for her anymore, it was a reality that loomed over our family like a dark cloud, threatening to rain down ruin. Mom, I don't understand. What do you mean people want you to fail? Is there anything left? The light in her eyes dimmed before my very eyes. Not much. They're threatening lawsuits, media exposure, I might lose everything. In that moment, the room felt suffocating. My life as I knew it was hanging in the balance, shaken to the core by my mother's vulnerability, and yet, a glimmer of dignity remained, a resolve she wore like armor. But I'm not backing down, she said, her voice steadier now. I will fight for these people, these families. I don't care about the money. In that fragile standoff, we connected in a way I never thought possible. But as I felt the weight of her strength, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sarah once more. You need to talk to your mother. There's more going on than you realize, trust me. My heart raced with questions. What more could there possibly be? Mom, her eyes narrowed. Fear mixing with determination. What now? What did she say? But the uncertainty churned inside me, the precarious tightrope we were walking ready to snap. Was there a truth even deeper than this standing between us, one that could unravel not just her world but mine as well? Before I could answer, a loud knock echoed against the door. My breath caught, my heart pounding harder than ever. What was coming through that door felt as monumental as a tidal wave, ready to sweep us off our feet. The very fabric of our newfound connection teetered on the edge of chaos. Stay here, I whispered, every muscle in my body tense. I'll handle it. But as I took a cautious step toward the door, dread wrapped around my throat, constricting tighter with every step. What awaited us could change everything, once again a revelation that might shatter the fragile shards of understanding we had struggled to build. The moment I opened the door, the world outside felt surreal, almost dreamlike in its brightness compared to the dimness of our living room. A man stood there, his silhouette stark against the bright hallway. He was tall, wearing a worn-out leather jacket that seemed out of place in our stark, modern building, the kind of facade that my mother had dedicated her life to perfecting. "Hello," he said, his voice gravelly but laced with an unexpected warmth. "Is this the Moore residence?" I nodded, my heart racing. "Yes, but good," he interrupted, a flicker of urgency catching his eye. "I need to speak to your mother." I hesitated, glancing back at my mom, who now stood just behind me, her expression a mix of curiosity and dread. There was an unspoken agreement between us, a tight coil of trust and fear, and this stranger threatened to unravel it. "Who are you?" I demanded, stepping protectively in front of my mother. "What do you want with her?" "I'm someone who can help." He shifted his weight, the weight of the world sitting heavily on his shoulders. "My name is Ryan. I'm a former associate from the charity sector, and I know what's going on with your mom and her company. So, you're here to gloat?" I snapped back, anger blurring my better judgment. "To make her feel worse about it?" "No," he replied sharply, his voice cutting through my defiance. "I'm here because I understand the gravity of the situation, and I want to help you both." My gut twisted at his words, a storm of uncertainty raging within me. Was he genuine, or was this some kind of trap? But my instinct was telling me that he bore a truth that might tip the scales one way or another. "Mom, what do you think?" I asked, feeling the weight of her decision hung precariously in the air. "I'm not sure, but we can't disregard anyone offering help right now." Her voice was steady, the strength she'd shown earlier flickering back. "Ryan, what do you know about the threats?" He stepped inside, and I instinctively closed the door behind him. The company's fall is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more to it. People are targeting individuals like you because they believe your commitment will crumble under pressure. They want the community outreach and humanitarian efforts to fail. Why? I pressed, the question heavy with implications. If what she's doing is noble, why do they want to destroy it? Because it challenges the very foundations on which they have built their empires. Ryan took a breath, a shadow passing over his face. There's a secret campaign against anyone who dares to transpose empathy on business. If your mother fails, they reinforce their notion that profit is above all else. A chill swept through me, a sense of betrayal bubbling underneath as I thought about the world I thought I knew. What can we do? Is there a way to fight back? Ryan's eyes sparkled with determination. We need to outmaneuver them together. But it won't be easy. There are people aligned against you, yet there's also unrest in the community. Many are willing to stand by your side if they know the truth. For a moment, a fragile hope flickered to life, igniting between us like a spark in the dark. My mother reached for my hand, gripping it tightly as if promising me she wouldn't let go. "What do we need to do?" "There's an urgent meeting tomorrow with other community leaders," Ryan said, his earnestness palpable. "If we can rally support and shift the conversation, we might stand a chance." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the familiar chime sending my heart racing again. "Wait, it's Sarah." "I need to see what she says," I murmured as I pulled it out. But before I could swipe the screen, the air shifted around us, heavy and pregnant with a foreboding sense of the unknown. The walls felt like they were closing in, as if something momentous was about to happen. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the hallway, reverberating through the stillness like the start of a countdown. I gasped, my heart racing as I exchanged a terrified glance with my mother and Ryan. "Stay here," I whispered again, adrenaline flooding my veins. But as I edged toward the door, fear clawed at my chest. "What now?" I muttered under my breath. Ryan stepped forward. "I'll go with you." "No." My voice cracked as my panic surged. What if it's dangerous? I can handle this, he said, a fierce determination lighting his features. Whatever is coming, we face it together. I stepped back reluctantly, my heart thumping wildly as we opened the door just a crack. The world beyond the threshold loomed dark and ominous, and the next moment, my breath caught as a shadowy figure materialized. A flicker of recognition struck me. It was Sarah, but she looked different, fear etched in her features, urgency overwhelming her composed demeanor. Get back. Get out of here. She shouted, her voice breaking, a clear warning slicing through the air like a pulsating drumbeat of dread. The weight of impending danger saturated the room, the fragile link between hope and despair dangling at the edge of a knife. With that single command, everything shifted once more, catapulting us deeper into chaos. The battle was far from over, and I had no idea how far we would have to go to survive the storm that was closing in around us. The din of Sarah's voice echoed in my ears as I scrambled to process the gravity of her words. Get back. Get out of here. Panic surged through my veins, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from her face. It was painted with a pallor of pure terror, a stark contrast to the bright confidence she usually radiated. What are you talking about? I breathed, the world narrowing down to the frantic beat of my heart. Just trust me. There's no time. She cast a glance over her shoulder, fear darting in her eyes. They won't stop until they have you all. The door trembled beneath my fingertips like it might burst open, the tension coiled tightly, ready to snap. For an instant, I thought of my mother, still rooted in the shelter of our darkened living room, and the fragile hope we had begun to weave together. The idea of tearing that away seemed unfathomable. Sarah, please, what's happening? My voice cracked, a mixture of fear and desperation consuming me. I got word from the inside, it's bigger than you think. They're going after your mother, using everything they've got. Ryan stepped in beside me, tension written in every muscle of his body. What do you know? He demanded, his voice a grounding force amidst the upheaval that I heard them talking about her. They can't let the outreach continue, it's undermining their operations, their control. She stumbled over her words, urgency drowning out the panic. They plan to sabotage the meeting tomorrow. If they can discredit her, they can turn the whole community against her. My heart sank as icy reality gripped me. How could they possibly do that? Their power runs deep, Sarah replied, her voice trembling with gravity. They'll plant evidence, make it look like financial mismanagement, anything to make her seem untrustworthy. The air in the hallway turned stale as the hand of impending doom squeezed at my throat. I turned back to look at my mother, who still stood in the gloom of our living room, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. The doubts that had begun to cloud her resolve surged once more. That we need to protect her, I whispered, fear together with fierce determination boiling inside me. Ryan nodded, locking eyes with me as if anchoring our moment together. We'll find a way. But right now, we need to move fast, stay ahead of them. Sarah, do you have a safe place? She nodded, her expression shifting, the flicker of hope transforming into resolve. I do. They won't look for us there. Then let's go. I took a breath, steadying myself, the taste of metal in the back of my throat. I grasped my mother's hand, drawing strength from her presence as Ryan led the way towards the fire escape. Outside, the night enveloped us in darkness, an odd comfort amidst the chaos. The cold air stung my lungs, but the ache of fear was countered by adrenaline coursing through my veins. We moved quickly, ducking into alleyways and shadows, the city glowing eerily around us as if it too had become an accomplice to our despair. Yet, even in that visceral urgency, small moments of kindness punctuated our flight. A stranger stopped, offering a gentle nod and a whispered, "Be safe," as we slipped by. Another soaked in the shared understanding of our camouflaged fears, their warmth wrapping around us like a guarded secret in a frigid night. As we reached a hidden doorway, I felt a glimmer of hope. We tumbled inside, out of sight, and the weight of the impending crisis relaxed only minutely. "Well, regroup here and call anyone who can help," Sarah said, pulling out her phone, fingers trembling. I glanced at my mother, her bravery shining dimly through her worried eyes. "Mom, you've always taught me that darkness doesn't last and we fight for what is right. We will find a way. She offered a weak smile, but the flicker of fear was still bright in her gaze. I don't want to let you down again. The tremor in her voice cut deep, and I could feel that old fear creeping back. You won't, I promised, wrapping my arms around her, feeling the steady rhythm of her heart. Together, we can turn this around. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed, her eyes widening as she read a message. It's from one of the community leaders. Someone's been leaking information. What? I asked, the knot of dread tightening. They know where we are, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath as the horror settled in. My world spinning, I grabbed her arm. What do you mean? Just that before she could finish, the door burst open, light flooding into the room as shadowy figures surged in, forming a wall of menace. I gasped, clutching my mother close, heart hammering as dread amplified to an unbearable crescendo. Through the wreckage of shattered hope, I caught a flash of Ryan, his determination unchanged, ready to face whatever storm was about to crash down upon us. But as the doorframe framed the suffocating fear, I knew this time was different. Oblivion wasn't just knocking, it was breaking in. And I was left teetering on the precipice, barely holding on to the promise that we would emerge unbroken. The light spilled into the room, stark and blinding. For a fleeting moment, everything was illuminated: the defiant look in Ryan's eyes, the startled expression on Sarah's face, and the sheer terror painted across my mother's features. It was as if the universe had paused, allowing us to recognize the gravity of our predicament before swallowing us back into the chaos. Get down! Ryan shouted, and instinctively, I ducked, dragging my mother with me behind an overturned table as the figures stepped into the room, their faces obscured by shadows. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs, a desperate drumbeat urging me to hold on. Where are they? One voice hissed, sharp with menace. Another shifted closer, the glint of a weapon catching the light momentarily, a flicker of metallic promise that set dread crawling through my veins. Stay quiet, I whispered to my mother, clutching her hand tightly as if it was the last bastion against the storm. We could hear them scouring the room, murmurs of authority clouding the air. Check everywhere. They can't have gone far. The ominous command echoed, bearing the weight of an unrelenting pursuit. As they ransacked the place, rifling through our meager belongings, I felt my mother tremble beside me. We need to get out of here, we can't wait any longer. Her voice, once steady as a lighthouse beacon in tumultuous seas, now cracked with uncertainty. Just hold on, I urged, but fear gnawed at me. I glanced at Sarah. She was biting her lip, hands shaking, processing the uncertainty that loomed. Suddenly, I felt a jolt of inspiration surging through me. Ryan, I whispered urgently, do you remember the vents? We can crawl through the system behind the walls. His eyes flickered as recognition dawned. ITLL, buy us time. We have to move now. With silent urgency, we crawled toward the small access panel beneath the table. Ryan climbed first, followed by Sarah, and then I helped my mother up, wishing I could reduce the traces of fear and vulnerability that stained her resolve. The last segment of our makeshift escape involved me forcing myself into the narrow opening, squeezing my eyes shut against the anxiety wannabe winners must feel before a grand performance. We launched ourselves into the labyrinth of metal and grime as voices swirled behind us. They're trying to escape. Hurry! Rang out as panic surged further. The cramped space constricted around us, making each breath labored, every movement calculated. I could feel the panicked pulse of my mother beside me, her presence both a comfort and an anchor. Just keep moving, Ryan whispered, leading us through the darkness, his voice a lighthouse guiding us away from the crushing waves of fear. As we navigated the cramped ductwork, a sudden thought struck me, a sting of warmth amidst the icy grip of anxiety. Mom, I whispered, what if we revealed everything? The truth about their operations, how they've manipulated our community. Her voice emerged, barely a whisper above the sounds of our hurried movement. If we expose them, then we risk everything. The safety of those involved, they'll come for us. For anyone who helps, but do we have a choice? We can't let them destroy the outreach. We can't let them win, I insisted, desperately trying to weave together strands of hope. As we squeezed through another vent, the muffled sounds of our pursuers faded momentarily, a fragile reprieve stitched together by sweat and adrenaline. Ryan pressed a finger to his lips, gesturing for silence. I nodded, straining to listen, my heart hammering not just with fear but with a growing sense of purpose. That's when my phone buzzed, a deep, jarring sound against the eerie quiet. I fished it out, dread unfurling in my stomach. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. If you want to save your mother, come to the docks at dawn. Alone. My breath hitched as the implications sunk in. I can't go alone, I murmured, glancing at my mother whose eyes widened with the realization of what it meant. Who sent that? She whispered, trembling. I don't know, I replied, panic clawing at my throat. But they could have leverage. We can't risk losing you. I can't, I'll go with you, Ryan insisted, determination etched into the lines of his face. We stick together. No, my mother interjected, her voice firm and soft like a fragile peace blanket. You have to protect Sarah. This is about more than just me now. Tears pricked my eyes, anger bubbling behind them. Mom, don't you dare say that. The air hummed with tension, our whispered fears echoed back in muted shades. But I could see the resolve hardening in her eyes. I knew what she wanted: to shield us, to throw herself into the fire if it meant keeping us safe. Before I could voice my protest, the ground beneath us began to shudder, the walls vibrating with the rising urgency of our unknown hunters. They're getting closer. Ryan hissed, looking back toward the tunnel opening we had crawled from. In that moment, clarity struck. We fight together, not at the cost of you, I declared, my voice stealing against the oncoming storm. We need to stall them, give ourselves a chance to escape. That we can't let them take you. My mother's words were drowned out by the crunching sound of footsteps approaching, the harsh breathing of those who hunted us mingling with the oppressive silence. Time felt suspended, a painful pause before the storm erupted. And as the shadows loomed closer, I could sense the unknown elemental forces gathering on the horizon, waiting and watching, and then it hit me: if they already knew where we'd be? What if revealing our location was part of their strategy all along? The uncertainty twisted, coiling in my gut like a snake ready to strike. Follow me, Ryan said urgently as the echoes of footfalls grew louder. We can find a way out. But as we moved deeper into the darkness, my heart raced at the impending confrontation ahead and the gnawing fear that somehow, the next choice we made could cost us everything we had fought for. The darkness enveloped us as we maneuvered through the narrow duct, eerie silence mingling with the scent of mildew and rust. Each sound, the scuttling of a rat, the distant hum of machinery, prickled my skin with unease. I could feel my mother's presence beside me, the warmth of her hand ever so reassuring, yet I was acutely aware of the time slipping away, the urgency of footsteps growing closer. Keep moving, don't look back, Ryan urged, leading us deeper into the labyrinth, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of anxiety. But my mind was racing. The message on my phone gnawed at me relentlessly. I couldn't shake the feeling that the threat was more than just a ploy, it was a betrayal, a sickening reminder of how easily one could be ensnared by the very forces meant to protect us. Are they going to let us go? Sarah asked, her voice breaking through my thoughts, laden with fear and desperation. What if it's a trap? I don't know, I admitted, forcing my voice to remain calm, but we need to trust each other. We can't let fear dictate our actions. My mother squeezed my hand, and as if sensing my worry, she leaned in closer. Everything will be okay, she whispered, her voice a fragile promise that was beginning to crack under the weight of the moment. Is that really true? I asked, guilt panging in my chest. Everything we've done, everything we're risking, can we really count on things turning out all right? Hope, she replied softly, is the only thing stronger than fear. No matter what happens, remember that. As we finally reached a junction in the duct, Ryan halted, scanning the dimly lit path ahead. There's a vent that leads to the loading dock, he said, but it's a straight shot. We'll be exposed. I could feel the tension in the air thickening, each heartbeat echoing the underlying fear we fought so hard to escape. We have to take a risk, I said, my voice trembling. It's our best chance to get somewhere safe, then it's decided, Ryan said, and I noticed a flicker of resolve in his gaze that mirrored my own. We had to trust each other now, more than ever. As we edged toward the vent, I felt the heavy weight of anticipation settle over us like a shroud. The thought of facing our pursuers sent a chill down my spine. Would we stand a chance against them? Just as we prepared to climb out, a faint commotion echoed from the duct behind us. The harrowing shouts of the hunters echoed louder, growing closer, their relentless pursuit edging ever nearer. My heart raced, and for a moment, I swallowed my fear and thought about that glimmer of hope my mother had spoken of, a fleeting image of safety and freedom brightening my mind like a distant star. Are you ready? Ryan asked, his eyes steely, the weight of the moment hanging between us like a fragile thread. Let's do this, I whispered, summoning every ounce of strength I possessed. One by one, we scrambled out into the dimly lit loading dock just as an ominous shadow swept through the entrance behind us. I turned to glance in horror and caught sight of a figure, imposing and clad in dark clothing. My heart plummeted in a visceral wave of dread. Run! Ryan yelled, and in an explosive burst, we took off, pounding toward the exit with urgency burning in our veins. The sound of our shouts and footsteps collided with the harsh metallic clink surrounding us, but we pushed onward, the merging force of adrenaline and hope driving us forward. Suddenly, my mother stumbled, catching herself just in time. I can't, she gasped, her breath coming in quick shallow bursts. The weight of the moment gripped my heart, a visceral fear for her well-being dousing my resolve. No, you can't stop now. I shouted, grabbing her arm. We were so close, but the fear clawed at us like thorns. We can't leave you behind. Just as I turned to propel my mother forward, another shadow loomed in the periphery. There was a loud crash, and crates toppled to the floor, blocking our escape. Time seemed to halt, and our breaths hung in the thick air, the sounds of pursuit swelling around us like rolling thunder. Go without me. My mother insisted, her voice a mixture of panic and ichor-laced resolve. I'll hold them back, no. I screamed, the primal instinct to protect her roaring to life. We stay together. Listen to your mother, said a voice from behind, sending icy fingers racing down my spine. A figure emerged from the shadows, someone I recognized but hadn't expected. My heart stopped as I took in the familiar frame, the features shadowed but unmistakable. Dad? My voice trembled as I struggled with disbelief. He had long vanished from my life, lost in the tumult of our family's turmoil, and in that moment, I realized was not the savior we had yearned for. He stepped closer, his eyes glinting with inscrutable intent. You don't understand the danger you're in. They'll tear you apart if no. Ryan yelled, shoving his body protectively in front of me and my mother. We won't allow you to threaten her again, stay out of this. My father barked, a momentary flicker of anger flashing in his eyes. Who sent that message? I demanded, the shock rippling through me like a sudden storm. What do they want from us? As our standoff reached a fever pitch, I could see the storm brewing in my father's eyes, an internal battle for control. You have to listen to me. He pleaded, but I could hear the desperation, the undertow of something darker lurking behind his words. In that moment, with the shadows drawing near, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. We were standing on the edge of a precipice, and the only path forward was shrouded in deception and darkness, but just as the tide of confrontation reached its zenith, I caught a glimmer of movement from behind him, the pursuing shadows closing in, and with them, the weight of a terrifying revelation. Would we lose everything to the unknown, or was there still a flicker of salvation in this tangled web of secrets? As my heart raced in precarious rhythm, I felt the edges of my reality fracturing, and I understood that whatever lay ahead would change our lives irrevocably. The urgency in the air felt electric, thick with tension as we stood frozen before my father, shadows slithering ever closer. One wrong move could spell disaster, and in the eye of the storm, the truth was as murky as the dim light around us. Dad, you're not here to help, I said, incredulity mixing with the fear that coursed through my veins. You disappeared on us. You can't just waltz back now and expect us to trust you. He jolted slightly, the challenge in my voice piercing through the haze of anger and confusion. I'm not the enemy, Ash. They're using you, and you don't even realize it. You think it's just a matter of survival, but you're playing into their hands. The sound of rushing footsteps echoed through the loading dock, the urgency of the approaching threats all too real. A fierce panic gripped my heart, and the instinct to protect my mother tightened my chest. I had never anticipated standing in front of my long-lost father, but I could barely recognize him. The man before me bore the weight of countless secrets, and neither of us could trust him. That we can't do this here. Ryan shouted, his protective stance never wavering. They'll find us. But before he could finish, the crashing sound of doors slamming open rippled through the air, and the figures of stern-faced men came pouring into the room, their intentions as dark as their attire. Quick! This way! Ryan barked, grabbing my arm and yanking me toward a door on the far side of the dock, his grip ironclad. No! We can't leave. Do you really think he's here for us? He shouted over his shoulder, the fierce determination in his eyes pooling into a potent mix of desperation and resolve. A single memory jabbed through the chaos, a fragmented smile from my father when I was young, a fleeting moment of joy long buried under layers of betrayal and demands. I shook it off and steeled myself against his voice, the memories too sharp to bear as the shadows around us deepened. There's still time. We can end this together. My father called out, panic threading through his words, but he was met with silence. Ryan was right, every instinct told me to move, to leave the weight of my father's motives behind for survival. A corridor laid ahead, dimly lit yet promising the possibility of escape. We sprinted toward it, the noise behind us growing louder and more hostile, like tormenting whispers beckoning us back to our past. My heart weighed heavy with doubt, yet every breath full of fire pushed me onward. We can't stop. I yelled back at my mother as she stumbled, gripping my hand just as she had before, the warmth now tingled with fear. Well, make it. Just a little longer, and then in a moment of chaotic desperation, I glanced back one final time, just in time to catch a glimpse of my father standing still amid the chaos as shadows engulfed him, his face etched with anguish I couldn't fully comprehend. Was it regret? Resignation? Ice gripped my heart at the thought, but I was yanked back into motion by Ryan's fierce grip. We surged through the door, a narrow passage spiraling away from the chaos, leading us deeper into the heart of the unknown. Just as we rounded a corner, I glanced over my shoulder, a final unease bubbling inside me as I dared to consider the risk of leaving my father behind. Was it betrayal or simply survival? In here! Ryan shouted, ushering us into a cramped room lined with shelves stacked high with dusty equipment. The door creaked shut behind us, and we were cocooned in the suffocating silence, broken only by our labored breaths. Do you think they'll find us? Sarah whispered, her eyes wide, stricken by fear. Well, think of something, Ryan said, his face taut with worry. But we need to regroup first. We need a plan. I could barely muster any hopeful thoughts. All those years of living in the shadows had left marks on our souls, scars from the secrets we were finally confronting. Yet just when despair clawed at the edges of my resolve, a timid knock echoed from the door, startling us all. Hello. A voice called from the other side, low and cautious. Our hearts thundered in unison. Who could it be? I couldn't stop the rush of emotion that flooded me as I moved closer to the door. Shadows shifted in my mind, swirling with possibility. What do they want? My name is Alice, the voice continued, steady but fragile. I know you're in there. I can help. Ryan repeated incredulously. We need to know who you are and what you want. Just let me in, she pleaded, her tone earnest. You're not safe. They won't stop until they have you. As her words washed over us, the weight of urgency pressed down. My heart raced at the thought of trusting a stranger amidst such peril, yet the desperation in her voice resonated deeply with an unyielding thread of hope. Open the door, I breathed, feeling an inexplicable pull toward that voice, even in our tortured state. The fear that had suffocated us felt slightly lighter, cracking the surface of our darkened reality, but just as Ryan's fingers brushed the handle, the ominous sound of footsteps grew louder outside, closing in with malice. In a split second, time stretched taut, and the ground beneath me seemed to shift. Open it now. I shouted, panic tightening my throat. Please. We can't let them find us." With a trembling hand, Ryan twisted the knob, and as the door swung open, we were met with not just salvation, but the looming specter of the unknown, a leap into whatever lay beyond. "What have we done?" I whispered, as the world around us began to blur, the future wavering like a mirage, and with the markings of danger still etched in our hearts. I knew our journey was only beginning. The moment the door creaked open, a gust of stale air swept into the room, enveloping us like a shroud of uncertainty. Alice stepped inside, her appearance disheveled but determination etched into her features. Behind her, the shadows seemed to recede momentarily, as if the light of her presence pushed back against the dark realities we faced. "Close the door," Ryan commanded, urgency snapping through his voice. I barely registered Alice's nod before he moved into the small space, the door shutting out the impending dread. The atmosphere, thick with tension, seemed to hold its breath as we studied our unexpected guest. "I heard what they're planning," Alice began, her voice a soft thread weaving its way through the silence. "They know about you, about your mother. They won't stop until they get what they want." My heart stumbled at the mention of my mother. It had never occurred to me that whatever turmoil had engulfed my family might extend beyond my father's sudden reappearance. "What do you mean they know about her?" I asked, the question spilling out with a mixture of fear and confusion. Alice glanced at Sarah, who stood near the back, her shoulders hunched and her face pale, the frailty in her frame stark against the resilient nature of our situation. "They want to leverage her. Your family has something far more valuable than just connections. And once they grasp that, it'll be game over." "The company," I murmured, whispering more to myself than anyone else. My mother inherited a tech empire that shaped the industry, but I had assumed its prominence was now just a veneer. The reality was much darker. I felt the shadows tightening again, coiling around the truth I had tried to ignore. "But how do you know all this?" Ryan's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts, grounding me momentarily. Alice hesitated, her eyes darting around the cramped room as if gauging when the walls might close in on her. "I've been watching. I used to work for them, and am still connected. They don't know I've turned against them, but am here to help you." Beneath the surface of my uncertainties, I felt something shift within me, a flicker of hope, however faint. "Why would you help us?" I asked, skepticism clinging to my words like a bitter aftertaste. "Because I can't stand by and let another family suffer under their tyranny. I watched them destroy too many lives. I want nothing more than to right the wrongs," she replied, her voice steady but her eyes betraying the pain of her own past. That moment of understanding hung between us, fraught with tension and possibility. But then the oppressive weight of our reality bore down again. "What's the plan, then?" I pressed, pushing through the anxiety curling in my stomach. "What do we do now?" Alice took a deep breath, solidifying her resolve. "We need to get to your mother before they do. She's the key, and if they believe they can use her for their gains, they'll stop at nothing to find her." "No." My voice echoed surprisingly loud in the small space. "She's not involved in this. I won't let them draw her in." "This isn't a matter of choice anymore," Ryan interrupted, his grip tightening around my arms. "We have to face this. It's not just about your father or your mother anymore, it's about all of us. We have to be prepared for anything." The tension in the room was palpable as we absorbed the gravity of our situation, the words hanging heavily in the air, a confirmation of our shared fragility. Alice stepped closer, urgency radiating off her with every hastened breath. "Listen, we don't have much time. The faction has operatives searching for you. If we can't move quickly, we'll become their next targets." Just then, the noise of shuffling feet could be heard outside, boots cutting through the air like knives. My heart leaped into my throat. "They've found us." Panic washed over us as we turned to the door, but Ryan shook his head fiercely, determination reigniting like a flame. "We have to escape. We can't sit here waiting to be caught. We need a window, anything." "We can go through the ventilation system," Alice suggested quickly, darting toward a dusty grate partially hidden behind a stack of equipment. "But we'll have to be fast. I don't know how long we have." A surge of adrenaline thrummed in my veins. We were on borrowed time, and the reality of it pushed me forward against the walls constricting my mind. I helped Ryan and Sarah into the space quickly, the sound of approaching footsteps echoing more ominously than before. Then I turned back to Alice, fear mixing with gratitude. Go. Alice urged me, her eyes fierce. I hesitated, caught in that moment of connection, trying to gauge her intentions. Was she truly on our side? And then I heard a voice outside, a deep, commanding voice, calling for a search. Something inside me twisted at the sound, it felt too familiar. We can't afford to stay here. I urged, the urgency of the moment monopolizing my thoughts. With one final glance at Alice, a sense of trust unfurling within me, I slipped into the shaft after my family. The metal grate clanged shut behind us, a final barrier between safety and the chaos lurking just outside our reach. Crawling through the cramped darkness, I felt the shadows close in, but hope thrummed faintly in my chest like a tender heartbeat signaling life beyond the fear. But another thought gnawed at me. A memory surfaced, a lost conversation with my mother about loyalty and choices. What repercussions lay ahead? And then, just as I thought we might find a way out, I heard a hushed whisper beckoning from the other side of the duct, echoing the dark tone of my father. "Ash, are you there?" His voice broke through the layer of veil. An unexpected revelation that sent a chilling tremor through my spine. Could I really trust him after all? The sharp clang of the grate echoed in my ears as I crawled further into the duct, each lurch pulling me deeper into uncertainty. The voice, a whisper tinged with unfamiliarity, seeped through the walls of the ventilation system, wrapping around my thoughts like a creeping vine. My father. What was he doing searching for me? Was he part of the faction? Or was this a desperate plea for connection? Keep moving. Ryan's voice pierced through my spiraling mind. He was ahead with Sarah, their figures outlined against the dimness of the shaft. I pressed forward, though every part of me screamed to turn back, to discover the truth behind my father's words. As we crawled along, the air grew heavier, the weight of our situation compressing around us. The whispers outside became clearer, shouts of urgency mixed with the rhythmic thud of heavy boots. The tension coiled tighter with every inch we moved, and just as I thought I could distance myself from the chaos, I heard Alice's anxious voice in my mind. "You need to trust the people who trust you." I choked back a tangle of emotion, willing myself to shake off the past that threatened to pin me down to its history. Whatever my father had become, I couldn't allow him to distract me from keeping us safe. As I turned a corner in the duct, the air shifted, a hint of cool relief beckoning from a crossway ahead. "Wait," Sarah's voice came softly, the trepidation evident in her whisper. "What if this doesn't lead anywhere? Then we improvise," Ryan replied firmly but quietly, the determination in his voice brightening the darkness around us. We were a team, even lost in this metal labyrinth, but my thoughts slinked back to the voice that echoed moments earlier, the voice that had always stirred a complicated blend of love and fear within me. Was he really searching for me, or was there a darker motivation behind his pursuit? I felt torn, my heart heavy with the weight of unresolved questions. Just then, the ventilation pipe shuddered beneath me, and I glanced back to see Ryan's eyes widen in alarm. "What was that?" His voice barely above a whisper. Before I could respond, a loud crash from below startled me, shaking the duct and sending the metallic echoes crashing back into my ears. I froze, and so did Ryan and Sarah. The ominous sounds of footsteps grew closer, accompanied by a sharp command. I couldn't quite make out, something about sealing the exits. "Come on," I urged, but each gasping breath felt like it would choke me with anxiety. We crawled frantically until we came to a junction, a slit of light spilling in from a vertical shaft that must lead to another room. "What if it's a trap?" Sarah murmured, her face pale, uncertainty glimmering in her wide eyes. "It's our only option," I replied, craving to appear strong but brimming with doubt myself. "We might find a way out." As we hesitated, the muffled chaos below intensified, and I envisioned my mother. Did she already know? Was she in danger? And amidst the endless turmoil, I remembered Alice's promise she would be our ally. The thought shimmered in the dark like a rising dawn inside the depth of night. With a resolve stronger than I had anticipated, I maneuvered toward the opening, our escape route. "On 3, I whispered. 1, 2, and just as I counted to 3, a fierce echo of voices collided with my ears. The commanding voice became unmistakable. If you've got him cornered, don't let him go. We can't afford to lose those files again. The revelation hit like a ton of bricks. The files. They contained evidence of the secrets my mother had buried, the dark transactions linked to the tech empire she presided over. It made sense now, the danger that clung to her like a shadow, the anger and confusion bubbled within, almost blinding me to the urgency of our escape. We have to move. Ryan urged, pulling me back to the present. Just then, the floor below us clanged, a direct shout piercing through the air. I know you're up there. Ash, we can help you. A chilling realization washed over me. It was my father's voice. My fingers gripped the edge of the duct, hesitation gripping tight. The choice hung before me: keep running or hear him out. For a mere breath, time suspended, the silent sighs of my heart ringing louder than the chaos. Help. I thought. How can I trust the man who abandoned me once? In that flicker of indecision, I looked into Ryan's deep-set eyes. They spoke of loyalty shielding against betrayal. I couldn't turn to my father. I wouldn't. We had to forge ahead without him. He might carry truths I needed to hear, but I wouldn't let it derail our fragile escape. That I pulled myself into the light, holding my breath, heart racing. The new room opened up before me, a stark contrast to the fear surrounding us. But as I landed unsteadily on my feet, my breath caught in my throat at the sight before me. Walls lined with screens displaying countless scrawled documents, all bearing the unmistakable seal of my mother's company. Damn, my heart sank. This was it. The confrontation I dreaded hung precariously in the air, bitter and unyielding. Suddenly, the screens flickered, and a face lit up. Me mother, appearing behind a security feed, eyes wide, tracking my every move. Ash. You have to listen to me. It's not what you think. The cliffhanger of her plea merged with the tumult of emotions battering my heart. The truth was standing right in front of me, yet the fear of exposure and betrayal stretched the distance between us into a chasm I couldn't cross, that I never expected. I mumbled, the words laced with confusion and distress. You would show up as a cleaner. What I discover next will change everything. And then the lights behind her flickered ominously, plunging the room into darkness, as I realized the deepest secrets were about to spill out, unleashing a tempest that could either unite or completely destroy us all. I couldn't breathe. My mother's face flickered under the dim lights, each frame a story untold, layered with pain and resilience. The room pulsed with unresolved tension as I struggled to comprehend the reality spiraling out of control around us. Mom, I whispered, my voice trembling. What do you mean it's not what I think? The screens around her flickered, a haunting cascade that flashed images of the company and the clandestine operations that had always been shrouded in secrecy. Ash, please, you have to understand. But then, the lights went out entirely, plunging the room into a suffocating blackness that enveloped us like a thick fog. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage as I reached out instinctively for the warmth of my mother's presence, for the safety she had always represented. Stay close, Ryan whispered fiercely, pulling me back from the encroaching shadows. Sarah was beside us, her breathing rapid and shallow, mirroring my own fears. Whatever happens, we stick together. The resolve in his voice steadied me, but shadows loomed large, threatening to unravel everything we had fought for. Mom. I called out, my voice echoing in the void, searching for a connection, for reassurance, but the silence was deafening. What's happening? Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered on, low and ominous, casting a sickly glow across the room. And there, standing at the far end of the cold, cavernous space, was my father, his silhouette jagged and intense. Get away from her. Ryan's protective instinct kicked in once more, and I could feel the adrenaline surging in my veins. I stepped in front of Sarah, my heart divided, pounding with a mixture of dread and yearning. I'm not here to hurt you, my father growled, the raw edge of desperation cutting through the darkness. I came to warn you. It's worse than you think. They're planning to make an example out of your mother, and you're in the crosshairs. Every inch of logic screamed at me to reject his words. The man who had walked away, leaving us to fend for ourselves. You expect me to believe you now? I shot back, anger and confusion twisting my insides. I wanted to believe that he had changed, that he was here for the right reasons, but the pain of betrayal still lingered like a bitter aftertaste. You don't have a choice, Ash. He bellowed, his voice an enthroning wind. They want to take everything from you. Your mother's fight to help those families is what makes her a target, and they won't stop until they've crushed her spirit and destroyed your hope. He closed the distance, desperation etched into the lines of his face. Trust me, let's put the past behind us. We need to band together or perish. Every fiber of my being ached to turn from him, to say that I couldn't trust the man who had walked out on us. Yet in the depths of my heart, I heard the echo of his words, a plea for unity when everything was cracking around us. Dad, how can we possibly? But before I could finish, a sharp sound sliced through the air, alarming all of us. The door shuddered violently, footsteps clamoring across the concrete floor behind us. Our time was rapidly slipping away. Listen, the community leaders I was with, they believe in your mother's vision, he pressed urgently, stepping closer as the cacophony grew louder. They're coming, and they need her to lead, but first we must protect her. To do that, we need to expose everything. Expose what? I challenged, every word laced with skepticism. You mean to declare a war that could destroy what little hope we have left? Yes. He shouted, the passion burning in his eyes as he closed the gap. To give the community the courage to stand alongside her. It's time for the truth to come to light. It's time to fight back, together. For a moment, the anger softened, replaced by a glimmer of hope. I couldn't ignore the hunger for a family united, something I had yearned for all my life. But as soon as the thought crossed my mind, I felt uncertainty wash over me, like cold water seeping into every crack of my resolve. That I took a step back, reaching for Ryan's arm as myself swirled in confusion. We don't know his motives. I pleaded. That we may not have a choice. Not anymore, Ryan countered, his voice low but insistent. We have to call the leaders we trust, expose the truth, and rally everyone behind your mother's cause. It's our only chance. The rumble of energy thrumming through the air around us stilled momentarily as I overlooked the chaos and clamor outside. Momentum building up, an urgency becoming tangible in the thick air. It was a choice that changed everything. Just then, another figure darted into the brightly lit room. It was Alice, her face radiant yet serious, and she directed us with an unyielding gaze. Time's running out. They're coming for you. In that moment, I felt the pieces shifting together. You're right. We need to come together to expose them. I turned to Alice and my father, the flicker of shared determination igniting a boldness in me. But it starts with my mother. We need to find her, and we need to prepare her for what lies ahead. Alice nodded, her eyes alight with fierce determination. Then let's move fast. We have no time to lose. But before we could react, the door crashed open, and figures poured in, their presence a tidal wave of darkness that crashed upon us. My heart dropped, my breath hitched. This was it. Before I knew it, Ryan and I shielded Alice and my mother, creating a wall of protection. Get behind us! I yelled, scarcely keeping my voice steady as fear gripped tight once more. The figures loomed closer, men in dark suits, faces shrouded, stepping with the kind of confidence that screamed authority. Enough! One barked, piercing through the fray. This ends now. You're all trespassing on sacred ground. With that command, the heaviness of the moment thickened, closing in on all sides as panic threatened to unleash its chaos. My heart pounded hard against my chest, but in that moment, clarity cut through the noise. Here stood the weight of rebellion against a system that stifled the very core of humanity. My instinct screamed to complain, to stammer against the tide of fear, but that was no longer enough. Who sent you? I cried out, adrenaline surging. Who are you really? Silence coated the room, almost palpable, like a heavy blanket suffocating any hope of reprieve. The leader stepped forward, and fury ignited inside me as I met his dark gaze, fortified by the bewildering reality unfolding around us. We're the ones that protect the status quo, he said coolly, lips twisting into a cruel smile that cracked my resolve like ice-glazed glass. And we won't let you disrupt our plans, but in that moment, something within me snapped a dawning realization. I felt the truth colliding, crashing against me like waves in a storm. My mother was not just a target, she was a symbol, a light in the suffocating darkness that threatened us. Then let's shine together. I yelled. Taking a step forward, I intertwined my fingers tightly with Ryan's and Alice's. You can't destroy the fight for what's right. And suddenly, against the odds, the figures stumbled, uncertainty breaking their cruel facade. The confrontation had become not just a battle for our lives, but a declaration of intent rooted in the shared desire to rise up against any darkness that threatened to snuff out our light. With a resolute heart, I lifted my chin defiantly, steeling myself against the tide, ready to embrace the fight ahead. It was time to reclaim our power, to forge a new beginning from the ashes of our past, and with that conviction echoing within, we stepped forward together, unyielding, fighting not just for ourselves, but for every soul entwined within our fraying tapestry of hope. The world lay before us, and the flicker of our shared courage ignited a fire that would blaze against the shadows. And as those flames reached higher, I knew whatever came next, we would face it together, refusing to bow to the darkness any longer. Together, we were unstoppable. Let's light up the world, I murmured, and as the words left my lips, I understood the resolution that would forever mark this moment, a promise that what we fought for, what we believed in, would never fade. It was a vow I would cherish eternally. We choose hope, together.